5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Welcome to Safari Live, North Landing Elementary School in Virginia Beach, the US of A. My name's Brent Leo Smith. I've got Gerard on camera, and aren't we excited to take you on a live safari? Just now, Viam and Jamie are going to be out as well, and he's disappearing, but there is the big bottom of an elephant there. Let's try and move a little bit. What an exciting way to start your safari, except he is not being the most kindly elephant. I can just make him out through the bush there. Let me see if I can find a little gap. But he's not hanging around, unfortunately. But I am on my way to a waterhole where I'm expecting to find, hopefully, lots of elephants. And I'm really excited to get all your questions. Now, this is not the first time we've had North Landing with us, and you guys always give us the best questions, so keep them coming. So when we see an elephant bull like that moving away, it means there could be other elephants really close by. So I'm just going to have a quick check. Now, isn't this amazing? You guys are sitting at school, and instead of a normal class, you're coming on a game drive with me, and I'm really happy to have you with me. So anything you guys have wondered about the African bush, if you want to know about lions, leopards, elephants, hyenas, if you want to know about birds, snakes or spiders, please send your questions in to me. So this morning there were lions and leopard in this area. So I'm hoping, apart from, of course, the elephants, we might be able to find one or both of them before you guys depart. Hopefully both, but at least one would be fun. And if you see me putting my head off the car like this, it means I'm looking for tracks. And that's one of the ways we find animals, is by looking for their footprints. And we try to follow their footprints to where the animal might be. I can actually smell elephants, and Gregory's actually asking questions about elephants. So maybe we're going to track some elephants with my nose today. Gregory wonders, why do elephants have tusks? Now, tusks are modified incisors. Incisors are those teeth on the side, but I'll keep talking about them in a few seconds, because we have the first decent sighting of an animal to show you. Here we go. That is a kudu, a greater kudu, and it is one of the biggest antelope we have here. Here we go, look at him. And he's a browser. And what a browser means is that he eats leaves, he doesn't eat grass. Now that's a young male, they can get much, much bigger than that with their horns. Now, unlike deer, which you get in America, antelope's horns don't fall off once a year. They're there for their whole lives unless they break them. And he's having a nice little afternoon snack. It's probably morning for you guys. It's just after 3 in the afternoon for us here in Africa. And it's a hungry, hungry kudu. You see his big ears. Now those are specially designed to listen out for lions and leopards. So you can see how he moves them around, and at the moment he's actually listening to me. So he's making sure that whatever he can hear around him isn't a danger, and he'll move and swivel the ears all over the place. And kudu have very big ears because they live quite often in thick areas of bush, so they can't see when the lion's coming, but sometimes they'll hear it before it gets close. There we Yeah, that's our first decent animal sighting. Going to keep going, and hopefully we're going to find some bigger animals or some kitty cats. But Gregory was asking about elephant tusks and why do elephants have tusks? Gregory, so I said they're modified in sizes, and sizes are your front teeth here. Now, they've been modified for fighting, and there's only two reasons animals evolve certain characteristics. One is to find girlfriends, and the other is to get food. In this particular case, the elephant's tusks do both. They can use their tusks to peel bark off the trees to eat, but they also use them to fight so they can get some girlfriends. So elephants are the biggest animals out here in the African bush. They're the biggest living land mammal in the world. Jackson's wondering, do they hunt? They don't, Jackson. We'd be in big trouble if they did. They eat trees and grass and fruit, leaves, bark. So they don't actually eat any meat at all. Your predators eat meat, and the biggest predator we have here is the lion. And they're the second biggest cat in the world, after the tiger, who lives in India. So we're heading towards the waterhole, and Bella's wondering, have we ever seen a baby elephant? We have, Bella, and they are very cute, and I'm hoping to be able to show you one, or maybe Jamie will find one for you. But there we go, we've got some elephant tracks, and they're heading down the road. I'm going to try to see if I can show you a nice track. The road's a bit hard here, so I think we might get lucky at the waterhole. There might be some elephants there. Good time of the day is to look for animals around the waterhole. And who knows, Bella, maybe there's a baby elephant waiting for you there. So you can see I'm looking carefully here. There's some thick bush with a dry creek bed there. And that's always a good place to look for leopards. They like to lie on the edges or even in the creek bed sometimes. Okay, we're about 30 seconds from checking the waterhole. Once we've finished checking the waterhole, we're going to jump across to Jamie, who's on the other vehicle. But 1 second, here we go. What could be at the waterhole? I see some animals. There we go, some buffalo. My buffalo, I'm not sure whether they're as good looking as Jamie's buffalo. So let's have a quick look at mine, and let's go have a look at Jamie's buffalo at another waterhole.
Oh, I'm not too sure about my good-looking buffalo and if they're any better looking than Brent, but a very warm hello to all of the students at North Landing School. It's great to have you on board on our live safaris. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon I have Vian sitting behind me doing all of the camera work and showing you all of these amazing things. So you've been briefly introduced to buffalo. Let's have a little bit of a closer look at what we've got here. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 buffalo bulls right in front of us, looking particularly relaxed on this windy winter's afternoon. It's lovely and warm out here, considering that it is right in the middle of our winter, but the buffalo taking advantage of all of the sun that is shining down before the temperature starts to drop and it gets cool once again. Now, they may look like cows, but you definitely shouldn't confuse them with them. Buffalo is a very wild, very interesting animal. And these groups of males, these are all boys, all of these buffalo bulls, these groups of males can actually be quite grumpy when they want to be, especially if they find that their personal space is being interrupted by somebody else. And Bella, welcome to the Sunset Safari. You were wondering about how we're safe in these safari vehicles without being attacked, since it's nice and open. Well, the answer is the biggest way that we make sure that we're safe is to always respect the animals, to always remember that they are wild animals, and to constantly be watching what they're doing. Luckily for us, most of the animals out here have grown up from the moment they are born until whatever age they happen to be. They've grown up with safari vehicles wandering about, driving past them, and they basically ignore us like we're not even there, like we're not an important part of their day. Sometimes baby elephants come up and play with the vehicle, try and scare the vehicle away, but they are just playing. But it's very important for us to remember that even though we know the animals and we know that they're comfortable with us, make sure that we never take that for granted. So we're always watching what they do. And speaking of that, and speaking of watching animals, there is a big animal lying in the dam itself. And if we have a closer look, I know he's hidden behind some logs, so he's difficult to see, but that is a hippo. Now, when I first drove up here, I was a little bit closer to the water hole itself, and he immediately got up and started showing me signs that he is uncomfortable with me. Now, I don't know whether he would have charged at us or whether he would actually have run away from the vehicle. But either way, it's important that we read those animals' body language, and that we recognize the message that we're giving them, or that they're giving us. Since we are in their home, not the other way around, so I just wanted to give him plenty of space. And of course, he is close to 4,000 pounds with huge canine teeth, modified teeth that could slice through anything. It's important to remember that I've got to give him plenty of space. They're also very, very fast. Now, Hannah, you were wondering, since Brent had buffalo at the waterhole, and I've got buffalo here at my waterhole, why is it that the buffalo are always at water? And the answer is buffalo are what's known as water-dependent animals. What that means is that they need to drink at least once a day in order to survive. So a buffalo doesn't do well in a desert situation. They're adapted to being in places where there is a permanent water supply. And in this case, there's not very much of that around, but especially these old bulls like to go and lie in the mud. And Drew, you were wondering, what do buffalo eat? The answer is buffalo only really eat grass. And at the moment, there's not much grass either. We're going into our winter season, into our dry season, and it's also a drought, which means that there's not too much in the way of food for all these buffalo, and they have to move and cover huge distances to eat the grass that they need to survive. They're enjoying a dusty afternoon. They don't look too stressed, but you do get herds of 400, 500 buffalo at one time. While we're looking at them, you have a nice chance to look at the buffalo's greatest weapon, which is the horns on the top of their heads. Now, those horns are solid bone and really, really heavy. Oh, there's an elephant behind us. Let's move nice and slowly because he's coming up with a bit of attitude. Hello, boy. You snuck up on me. You're so quiet. No. Let's be nice, okay? Yes, here's a good boy. It's a young bull coming across to have a drink. He's thirsty as well. Elephants also, like the buffalo, really need to have access to water. Now look at this, because the hippo and the elephant are going to have something of an interesting confrontation. I think the hippo is going to get up and move. Yeah, the elephant's going to go chase that hippo away. Oh, time for a mud bath. Oh, good. The elephant didn't chase the hippo away. He's left him just in the corner of the waterhole, and he's now using his trunk to spray himself in muddy water. And there you go, you've got an elephant using its trunk in one of the most common ways that elephants do. Laurel, you were wondering why elephants have trunks. And there's actually so many different reasons and different ways that they use them. But it is an incredible thing, and it's something that is almost completely unique to the African and the Asian elephants. So elephants have trunks. One of the big reasons is because they're exceptionally tall. And in order to be able to drink, if they didn't have a trunk to transfer the water from the water hole to their mouths, they'd actually have to kneel down and put their mouth right at the entrance to the dam, which isn't an easy thing to do when you are a couple of 1,000 pounds worth of animal. In this case, this guy is probably, I would guess, at maybe close to 8,000, maybe even 10,000 pounds. He's still young, not the biggest elephant I've ever seen, but he's still pretty impressive. But that's one of the reasons elephants have trunks. They also need it to feed right at the top of trees. They can stretch their trunk right up. Yes, boy. He's going to go, I think he wants to chase the buffalo. Oh, no. Changed his mind, having a good flap. Look at him, he's covered in mud to help him cool down. Actually, Alicia, that answers your question about why elephants have rough skin. Well, that is one of the reasons, is because it sort of, all of the mud and the water gets into the cracks of the skin and helps to keep an elephant nice and cool, because it doesn't dry quickly. So the elephant can stay nice and cool, especially out here when it goes over 100 degrees. Chasing a bird. Silly elephant. Now is he going to go chase the buffalo? No? What was that all about, you silly boy? Coming to make sure everybody knows that he's the king of the waterhole. But also, the other reason why they have such rough skin is so that they don't get scratched or injured when they walk through the thick vegetation, maybe next to a river where there's lots of trees with thorns and other uncomfortable things. If they walk right up close and they didn't have thick skin, then they would get cut all the time. But these elephants, because their skin is so thick, don't need to worry about that ever. They're also very big, and I think he's going to go and think about chasing that buffalo again. And Braxton, you were wondering how an elephant protects itself. He's just showing everybody that he's the biggest, scariest thing here. Well, the answer is they're bigger than pretty much every other animal out here. The nice thing about elephants, of course, is that they also, for the females and for the babies, they live in a herd, which means they've got safety in numbers as well. Lots of adults to protect all of the babies that are there. The only thing that might hunt an elephant, apart from human beings, and luckily we don't have that here, that nobody hunts an elephant in this protected area that we're in. But the only thing that is a threat to an elephant, maybe, is a pride of lions. And even then, they only target the youngsters and the youngsters that are, so the babies that are away from the group or separated from the group. Because an elephant is really big and strong. They can hit things with their trunk. They've got those big modified teeth as tusks that curve out away from their face. So they can use those to stab anything that might be a threat. And they're just heavy. 10,000 pounds of elephant, if it stood on you, would be an excellent weapon. You'd be crushed completely. So that's the way that elephants protect themselves. Sometimes what you were seeing there, that young male who was chasing the hippo and the buffalo, he was doing that because he's just left his herd. He's still young, and he's only been on his own for maybe a couple of years at the most. So he still feels a bit vulnerable, and he kind of wants to chase things in order to remind himself and to remind the other animals that he is big and scary. But you could see by the way that the buffalo and the hippo responded, they didn't need reminding. Now what he did there was he covered himself in muddy water. Drew, you were wondering if they ever use that in water as a sunscreen. And yes, to an extent, they will cover themselves in mud to protect themselves from the sun. The buffalo do it as well. And importantly, I'll tell you a story about hippo and sunscreen at the moment. But a lot of the animals use mud to help to protect their skin from the bright sun, the very strong summer sun, which can get up to well over 115 degrees Fahrenheit here in summer. So that's what the animals here will do to help to keep themselves cool and protected. And also to help to catch any parasites and itchy things that, like ticks, that might be infesting their skin. Now, Drew, on the subject of sunscreen, the hippo also has something like sunscreen, and in fact, a hippo's skin is really sensitive to the sun. It's one of the reasons why our hippo is so grumpy at the moment and feeling a bit scared, is because he's constantly in the sun, which means that he doesn't have enough water, first of all, to feel safe, and second of all, to help protect his skin. What hippo can do is they secrete a red substance that used to be known as blood sweat, because scientists thought that they were sweating blood, but it's not blood at all. It is just a different type of sweat that has really special sunblock chemicals in it to help to keep it safe and protected when it does get stuck in the sun, like our poor hippo is here. Now, Quentin, while we're looking at the buffalo at the back and the hippo, and both of those species have birds landing on the back of them, except for that one where the bird flew away. But Quentin, you've seen some of the birds landing on the buffalo, and you were wondering what it is that they are doing. Well, those are called oxpeckers. We get two different types. We get a red-billed and a yellow-billed oxpecker, and those will hop around on the buffalo, and they will try and pick up any ticks that might be around the buffalo's more sensitive areas. I won't be able to because of the hippo, I won't be able to get you close enough to have a look at the ticks that infest buffalo, but they do have lots and lots of them on their skin. And the oxpeckers fly down and they pick off the ticks and they eat them. So they actually do the buffalo a huge favor by getting rid of all of those itchy, biting creatures that are infesting their skin. Sometimes they're a bit irritating, and as an oxpecker, they quite like the taste of ticks. So if there's any kind of a scratch or an injury on the buffalo, then they will peck away and keep it open. So anything like a scratch, the oxpeckers actually peck at that as well. So sometimes they're really helpful, and sometimes they make things even worse. Now, earlier on, most of our buffalo have now stood up and they're starting to feed as the afternoon draws to a close. But they were doing what's known as ruminating, which was chewing away at the grass that was coming up from their stomachs. And Christian, you were wondering, do buffalo have sharp teeth? They have very rough teeth. I wouldn't describe them as sharp like a lion's teeth might be sharp or a wild dog's teeth might be sharp. But they can nibble away. They are sharp enough to break the grass that they eat. And then they're very, very rough. They've got very well-developed molars that they can use to chew the grass a lot, over and over and over again, to help to break it down. And what we'll do, Christian, is if I see a buffalo skull somewhere along the way, then I'll stop and I'll be able to show you what a buffalo's teeth look like. They are really nice and sharp. Everybody looking particularly peaceful. I think it's time to leave our waterhole scene and go and see what else we can find out here. Investigate a little bit further on, maybe see where the other elephants are. So while we do that, let's jump on the back of the vehicle with Brent and find out what he's up to.
Wow, it sounds like you guys had an amazing time at that waterhole with Jamie. Elephant, buffalo, hippo. Aren't you spoiled? Oh, speaking of elephants, as we come round the corner, here's another one. Hello, big boy. He's giving us the sniff. So this is a big elephant bull. Oh, watch, he's going to move that whole big tree. So what he's doing is he's moving the dead tree to get to the grass underneath. And because he's so big and strong, he's able to do that. And no other animals have managed to eat that grass yet. So what we've been doing is we've been going around looking for lion and leopard tracks. Look at how strong he is. Just rolls the dead tree out of the way. Now, Quinton's thinking faster than me, or thinking the same as me, because I was about to tell you how big elephants got, and Quinton was asking that question. Oh, clever boy, Quinton. So they get to about 14,000 pounds in weight, and can be, if I remember my feet conversions correctly, they can get about 18 foot tall. Could be a little bit less, maybe it was 17 feet. But what's a foot or two when you're that big? Sorry, I'm lying it completely. My conversions are terrible. They get 14 to 15 feet tall at the shoulder. So if we look right at the top, that's the highest point of an elephant there that I'm showing you now. And that's 14 foot tall. And, you can see his big tail to keep all the flies away. I'm just going to move forward a little bit so you can have a look at his tusks. So you guys are left or right-handed, depending. So elephants are the same. It's okay, big boy. Hello, mister. Here we go. And this particular elephant, he is right-tusked. You can see his right tusk is a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter, and it's been worn down. So that's the one he uses to feed with the most. So he's a right-tusked elephant. Hello, mister. So with big elephant bulls, quite often they will lift their heads at you, shake the head at you. Now, we're quite close to him. We're probably about 14 feet from him, about as far as an elephant is tall, maybe a little bit more. And Hannah's wondering how fast an elephant is. Can they run fast? They can. They can run much faster than a person, Hannah, even faster than Usain Bolt. And they run probably can get up to about 50 or 60 kilometers an hour. Now, if we look carefully on his face, especially between the tusks there, you can see there's a little cut. There we go. And if we go up a little bit, just below his eye, there's another little cut. Now, we were talking about elephants' use for tusks. Those are from fighting, both those scars on his face. His skin is so thick that not even the biggest thorn in the bush can go through it. But another set of elephant's tusks can do some damage to him. So those are definitely from fighting, and he was probably fighting over a girl. Here we go. You can see the slight difference on the tusk closest to us has been worn down. Here's their big ears. Now, Jackson's wondering, are elephants camouflaged? Well, not really, Jackson, but they don't really need to be because they're so big. Normally, you want to camouflage yourself to protect yourself or to make it easier for you to catch something. Now, an elephant being so big, and once it's an adult, there's no need for camouflage. There's nothing really that's going to attack him apart from other elephants. And they can smell and hear each other from a long way away. And we look at those massive ears, like big radar dishes. You got a little bit of a shock there when I said radar dishes. But that big ear is used to push as much sound as possible into his ear hole there. And you can see that got some hair there just to protect. And Arrow was wondering why they have big ears. So Arrow, there's two reasons. The other reason is it's an elephant's AC. It's their air conditioning machine. Now, they can have about 2 gallons of blood in their ears at one time, And when they flap their ears, it cools that blood and cools their whole body. So that's why, another reason they've got those big ears. And what the tree he's eating at the moment is very thorny, and you can see it doesn't bother him at all. Now, he's a nice, relaxed boy, probably around 30 years old. Jackson's wondering, why does the elephant look angry? Well, at the moment, he's not looking too angry at all, Jackson. Look, he's smelling us. That's what he's doing. He's giving us a sniff, making sure we're not a problem. But he's not looking very angry. Elephants show very specific signs when they're angry, and he's not showing any of those signs at the moment. One of the more important, subtle signs to look out for with an angry elephant is their tail. If their tail starts getting a little bit stiff, or they start sticking their tail out, that means they are angry, and his tail is nice and loose, and he's happily eating away, so he's not worried about us at all. Now, he's chewing on really sharp thorns. Now, the inside of an elephant's mouth, the best way I can describe it is it's tough as an old boot, very strong old leather. Yum, yum, yum. Now, the tree he's eating, we can eat as well. It's called a buffalo thorn. It's a tasty little fruit, and you can even add the fresh young leaves into a salad. Caillou is saying, how do I know which tusk is for feeding and which tusk is for fighting? Well, if you have a look, both his tusks are for fighting, but the one he uses for feeding is generally slightly worn, and so it's a little bit shorter normally, and it's not as sharp, but he'll use both tusks for fighting, but only normally one for feeding. You get some very talented elephants that can use both. Ambitusked, like ambidextrous. Okay, mister, you continue munching. We're going to go see what other animals we can find. And before we disappear completely, that elephant looks like he's enjoying that buffalo thorn so much. I've got a buffalo thorn of my own over here, and you can have a look at those thorns that that elephant was eating. So you can have a look at these thorns. They are incredible. So you can see it's got one straight big thorn and one hooked thorn. Now, and he's just munching straight through all of those, but we would get very stuck on that. But now there's some nice young fresh leaves over there. Let's pick them. It's the elephants having such a good time eating them. I think maybe we should as well. Do you want to leave? There we go.
Thank you.
So a little game drive snack while we're out in the bush. Some buffalo thorn leaves. So while I go see if I can find another bush snack, let's go see what Jamie's up to.
I think a bush snack sounds absolutely wonderful. Them and myself have brought fruit along for the ride just to make sure that we're nice and fed up as we go along. So we've got pears and bananas and apples and all kinds of things to keep us well stocked. It's important not to go hungry out here. And then, of course, it's always important to carry plenty of water with you as well. And Drew, you were wondering, while we go searching for different things, if we have snakes in this place. And we do. We have lots of different species of snakes. Now, hands up if you're frightened or if you're afraid of a snake. Lots of people are, and often for a good reason, because some snakes have very strong venom that's capable of hurting a person, and in some cases, with the more dangerous snakes out here, even killing them. But it's really important to remember that snakes are far more afraid of us than we are of them, and that no snake is going to go out of its way to catch and to try and attack a human being. It's only when people try to catch them or make them scared that snakes attack. So we've got lots of different snakes. We've got the famous black mamba out here, one of the fastest and most venomous of snakes, and we've had a few really, really good sightings. The thing about winter, though, is that a lot of the snakes go into what's called estivation. That's like hibernation, but they only do it when it's dry, and which means that they do it in our winter time. But doesn't mean that we won't see one, because they do come out, especially on hot afternoons like this afternoon, or maybe when there's a couple of drops of rain. They do actually come out to bask in the sun and maybe catch themselves some food. So we get rock pythons and cobras, puff adders. I even woke up the one day, I was having a bit of a nap in between because it was summer and we wake up really, really early in summer. So I was having a nap, and I woke up because a snake was actually crawling into the bed with me, looking for a nice, comfortable spot. But it wasn't too scary, it wasn't a dangerous snake at all. And as soon as I sat up, then it slithered off the bed and went and hid underneath my shoes. But we do see lots of snakes, and if you want to go looking for snakes, places like this dam are a perfect place to start. Maybe in some of the old trees that we get. And I know that Brent was talking about a buffalo thorn with you. I'm going to stop and show you this tree that's in front of me, because it's one of my absolute favorites. It's called a leadwood tree. And the reason why I love leadwoods is, first of all, it's a good place to look for snakes and other such things. But second of all, the amazing thing about a leadwood is that it can grow for a really long time. It's called leadwood because its wood is so heavy that when you put it in water, it sinks instead of floating. And they've done some testing on leadwoods that show that they can live for hundreds and hundreds of years. And even after they die, because the wood is so heavy and so dense, even after they die, the leadwood trees stay standing for also, again, hundreds and hundreds of years. Which is why in this country, it's illegal to cut down a leadwood, even if it's dead. In this case, the leadwood is still well and truly alive, but it is one of my absolute favorite trees and just one of the many amazing things that you can find out in the African bush. Well, unfortunately for the students at North Landing, it's time for you to go about the rest of your school day. I hope that you've had an amazing time on safari and that we get to see you once again. So enjoy the rest of your day, and bye-bye from our side. It's amazing how muscle memory works. For our regular viewers, hello once again. I'm just going to introduce myself again, since we have been gearing the safari towards the kids at North Landing. But hello, my name is Janie, and this afternoon I have Viam on camera with me. And as you can tell, we are on our makeshift Mahindra that I have, for some bizarre reason, decided it needs to be called Maggie. I'm taking a unilateral decision here. I'm probably going to get pilloried for this when I get back to camp, but this is Maggie. I have decided that is the case. I feel as though Maggie the Mahindra gets utilized so frequently every now and again that she is deserving of a name at this point, and she has treated us so very well. Goodness, everything's changed. But Maggie the Mahindra's keys are on the other side to the Land Rover keys, which means I keep reaching to turn on the engine on the wrong side and having to correct myself. It's amazing how that muscle memory gets embedded into your daily conscious. And Twin Dams, also known now as Twin Lakes, has been renovated, which is why the road, oh my goodness, it's also why it's so dusty here. While we escape the dust and various things, let's go across to Brent to find out what his plans are.
Now, this morning we had great non-success in trying to find the Tsalala Pride. So fingers crossed that we're going to have a little bit more luck on the sunset safari. So I'm just taking a little bit of a wider berth from where they were lost this morning. I'm still confident they're somewhere in that block. So I'm just slowly heading my way there. And then I heard there was a leopard found after drive on our boundary, but inside Sibambili, and I'm hoping he decides to come south. So we did mention that tigers a little bit earlier on the safari, and of course they don't live out here. But Andre is wondering whether I think a tiger would survive out in the African bush. Now, it's a very good question, Andre. I'm not sure. They generally tend to live in slightly more forested areas with a lot more water. So I'm just going to turn this radio down. Well, the flies are attacking already today, but I think the biggest problem with the tiger, it might be outcompeted, because the big predators here are all social predators. So they're in groups, whereas the tiger's a solitary predator. So it'll be a very, very interesting thing. And where lions and tigers both occur, in India, the lions and tigers actually live in separate parts of the country. There are no tigers in the Gir Forest National Park where the lions are. So it's one of those probably questions that has been asked many, many times, and there's no definitive answer to. Survive? Maybe not. Don't think so. I think it might be a bit dry and they might get outcompeted. I'm being mauled by tiny little flies called stable flies, and if you don't get them before, they bite, and they actually bite quite sore, and they suck your blood. Evil little buggers. Oh, I got him. There we go. Now, it's always important to check these game paths like this. You can see it's a nice big path caused by elephants. Always good to look for tracks on such things. And unfortunately today, no cat tracks on that one. At this time of the day, lions are more than likely going to be in the deep shade. It's nice and warm today. 28 degrees Celsius, which is, I think, 80 something Fahrenheit. So 82 Fahrenheit, so really nice and warm. And this is what we call winter, by the way. Well, winter's afternoon at least. The temperature is going to drop quite quickly once the sun dips down below the western horizon. So South Africa is a really big country. Well, not really big if you take it in the States, but it's, on African terms, it's quite a large country. Lots of diverse habitats. And Pamela's wondering whether our fruit is exported from the US, imported from the US or from the UK. You'll probably find, Pamela, you're far more likely to find South African fruit in the UK and the US than the other way around. Actually, not far from here is a big fruit producing industry. Citrus, mangoes, macadamia nuts. What else do they farm around these parts? Tomatoes, yes. Largest tomato producer in the southern hemisphere is just up the road. ZZ2. And they export a lot across. Oh, hello. Nice big herd of impala. And I saw something else behind the termite mound. Did I? Or my eyes playing tricks on me? No, I did. Nice kudu bull. So we saw a young kudu bull at the start of the safari, and there's a big boy there at the back. Ooh, he's feeling a bit shy, heading off into the bush with the impala. Off he goes. Nice little impalas. They're also heading off into the bush, so we're going to keep looking for lions. Now, if you're new to Safari Live, or you've just stumbled upon this and you're going, what am I looking at? You're looking at a live African safari, and there's two of us out here trying to find you the most amazing animals in Africa, and hopefully we're going to keep doing that for the rest of the drive. But let's go see what's happening with Jamie on the other vehicle.
I'm currently driving along Leadwood. I'm just checking to see, I don't know, Leadwood sometimes gets forgotten as a road. People forget to drive along here and double check whether there's any tracks on this particular part of Djuma. So that's where we are now, and while we were with Brent, I was just chatting to Mike from Cheetah Plains to find out if there were any updates from his side. Now, unfortunately, given the makeshift Mahindra, we won't be able to go across to that in that direction, but he did tell us that it was very quiet on Cheetah Plains as well, and we don't need to go rushing off in that direction. He's on his way to Torchwood to follow up and see if he can't find Inkanyeni. Inkanyeni is a female leopard that I have yet to see somehow. She keeps managing to just escape me, and at the moment is outside of our Traverse area, but she's got two young, gorgeous little cubs, and hopefully he manages to, track distraction. Hopefully he manages to relocate her. Oh, okay, that's definitely not going to be very exciting. It was a hyena track that was roughly the size of a lioness track. We have some absolutely enormous hyenas here, and it's nice to know that they're still wandering about, even if they have moved the den site away from our Traverse area, which I'm particularly sad about because the hyena den was my happy place, and it seems as though they have abandoned us for now. Hopefully they won't be gone for too long. That being said, I'm going to keep checking some of the older den sites over the next few days. I think I'll check one per drive, just to make sure that none of the other females in that clan have given birth to new cubs. It's distinctly possible at this point. And because of the age difference, they might have decided not to have their cubs in the same den as the older cubs that we've been watching over the last few months. Maybe. It's possible to tell, but we'll see. I'm really hoping, I think it might be wishful thinking on my part, but I'm really hoping that will be the case. Wonderful question coming through from Elaine, and I'm having a good chuckle because I actually completely forgot about this. Last night, Liam and myself spent a very enjoyable 3 hours with the Nkuhuma lionesses before they decided to go into some really thick and dense vegetation. Little waterbuck, making life very difficult. Let me try and get a gap up ahead. Not really. Sort of. Can you kind of see it from there, Liam? Sort of. Well, we better watch it since we've gone through the effort of trying to see it. Unfortunately, the little waterbuck feeling a little bit camera shy. That's it. Viv says that's the end of that. So yesterday, that was sort of how our lion sighting went. The moment they got up, they went straight into the densest vegetation imaginable and proceeded on to Simbambili, where they killed a waterbuck. They were looking very, very hungry, and we knew that they would be hunting. However, on our way to attempt to relocate them, we discovered a pile of, or several piles of planks or lumber that had very clearly fallen off a truck at some point on the main access road. And I was just having a jolly good chuckle at it last night because I was imagining the poor person getting back home and realizing that they'd lost an entire load of wood on the drive back. But Elaine, yes, the mystery of the missing lumber was solved. It was in fact our lumber, as in Wild Earth's lumber. We're in the process of building and expanding and doing some interesting things around camp. And the poor guy he was actually coming in, he just picked up that delivery and he was coming back towards the camp, and he was because it was dark, he was too scared. He knew he was losing the planks, but he was too scared to go back and pick them up. He didn't want to do it on his own. He wanted to go and collect some company first and then go back and fetch them. So by the time Vim and myself were heading home at the end of the sunset safari, we did encounter the hapless owner of the lost lumber, and he was on his way back to collect it with some company. And I mean, fair enough, because although he didn't know it, there were hungry lionesses wandering about that area. So he was right to be a bit wary of jumping out and fetching and reloading all of that stuff on his own. Poor guy. Shame, man. But you'll be happy to know the lumber was reunited with its owner and is now being hammered into what looks like the frame for the veranda of the new final control building. Would be my guess at what that's going to be. I like that idea. On the subject of our missing hyenas, they're not really missing, they're just not where we can go and see them. Bethany, you were saying you think that we should perhaps give a map of our traverse area to the hyenas. Long wait, sorry, I got concerned about the aerial, but we're actually fine. We must take a map of our traverse area to the hyenas so that they can pick their spots a little better next time. I completely agree with you. I think it was most inconsiderate of them to disappear away from where we could go and watch them. And I miss them terribly. But it's always a positive to know that they will be back at some point. I don't think they're going to be gone for too long. The central part of Djuma is such a perfect spot for the hyena clan that lives here, and it's so central to their territory that I don't think they're going to be gone for too much longer. I'm just really hoping that is the case. And on the subject of hyenas, Debbie in Vancouver, you were wondering, with the males and females, which is larger? The spotted hyena is one of those unique, completely different animals in terms of their genders and their reproductive strategies. Now, the female is invariably larger and more dominant than the male. She has high levels of testosterone and androgen. I do that every time I say that sentence. Testosterone and androgen. So she's got very high levels of male hormones and is invariably right up to the sort of 20 to 30 kilograms heavier. And that's between 40 to 60 pounds that a female hyena is larger than the male. And she automatically takes a more dominant role over him. She's always, even the lowest ranking female hyena, and hyenas do have a very strict hierarchy, but even the lowest ranking female is higher in status than any of the males. And it means that the males have to be particularly cautious when approaching a female for a mating opportunity. They tend to get, if they do get rejected, they get well and truly rejected, often with snaps or bites. Speaking of hyenas, James showed me the most incredible video just before we went out on safari of a hyena that had 2 paralyzed back legs that was around, I think it was one of Kevin Richardson's hyenas. And this hyena had learned to walk on its front legs, not in a handstand or anything like that, but it basically, obviously with the incredible abdominal strength, tucked its back legs up and under, close to its chest, and then walked like that in a pose that would have made yoga masters around the world exceptionally impressed. It's phenomenal to see just how resilient these amazing animals are. And it does give us hope that that poor hyena that we saw getting mauled with Scott a couple of weeks ago by the other hyenas of our clan, it does provide plenty of hope that it would still be okay. Unfortunately, as we're driving along Drakensberg, it seems as though we might have strayed too far for our intermittent radio communication, so I'm going to try that one more time. I know it was a question from Sandy in Florida. I just don't know entirely what it was. Try lifting this up. Lift the aerial into the air. I can't, I'm so tangled in my cables. Okay, Vien's got no comms at all, so he can't help me. And now it's gone crazy. Now it's just beeping at me. We might be talking to you, we might not. I'm just turning my radio off and on in the hope that it will rectify itself at some point. Oh, there we go. Here's the lovely voice of Kirsty McLennan-Smith in Final Control. I think she's saying testing. She might also be telling me that she's nesting. Or listing. Here we go. Debbie in Florida, I've got your question this time. You were wondering about Gendre's foot. Sandy in Florida, you were wondering about Gendre's foot and whether it's any better since you saw it in the tent. Now, for those of you who have missed that update, Gendre stepped on a rusty nail, had a tetanus shot almost immediately, but 2 days later woke up in absolute agony with his foot 3 times the size it should be, and has subsequently been taking enough antibiotics to quite possibly cure every infection he may ever have had. And his foot, Sandy, is getting better. He's gone back to the doctor again today. They've given him more antibiotics. It's a very nasty secondary infection. It's been incredibly unpleasant. I think it's been a great deal more painful than he's actually let on. It looks incredibly painful. His toes don't really move too much. However, the doctor does say, on sort of on a more hopeful track, he is very much on the mend, looking better. It's just a matter of time for him. And I know that it's something he's found incredibly frustrating, and we keep having to shout at him every time he wants to go out on drive. As with all of our cameramen, he is exceptionally dedicated. But he will survive, and he's had to deal with our own brand of very tough bush sympathy, which is there. It's just given through a mixture of sympathy and insults at the same time. But I'm sure he's going to be absolutely fine. Now, we've stumbled into the middle of a bird feeding party. There's one of them in there. It's a hoopoe in the buffalo thorn. Can you see it there, Ben? He's sitting on the horizontal branch, the lowest horizontal. The buffalo thorn. Oh, there he goes. That's the one, yeah. No problem. There he goes. There's a whole bird feeding party. In other words, lots of birds of different species hanging around. And we're going to try and get you a good view of some of them. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be tricky in this particular part of Central. How did you all fly there? No, they all want to remain as hidden as possible. And it consists of a whole load of species that are very much they're shy bird species. They prefer the thick and dense vegetation. So whilst they were all around there at one point, they have now all moved off. There were a couple of helmet shrikes, some flycatchers, drongos, chagras, maybe even the odd eremomola or two. They've all disappeared off. Okay, well in that case let us continue onwards. Oh, there you go, the helmet shrikes. All spotted them. Let's try sneak up on them by rolling. Come on, Maggie. No. There we go. Oh, dealing with much larger, much heavier vehicles than we are. Aww. Aww, helmet shrikes. I fear we shall have to give this up. Don't know that it's going to work. Nope. Sorry about that, everybody. Birds don't want to appear on camera today, and I think it's partly because of this wind that is billowing about now all of a sudden. I hear tell of a horrifying cold front that's just hit the shores of Cape Town and is going to be slowly making its way up towards us. I think that this warm wind is the stirrings of that, the changing climatic conditions that are about to assault us. I think poor Kirsty's trying to talk to me once again. Sorry, Kirst, I don't know what you're saying. Okay, we need to start making our way back towards an easier comms place. While we do that, let's go and find out what Brent was doing off the vehicle and which tracks he was following.
So I did some Ferrari tracking. I walked quite quickly through this area where they think the lions went, and unless lions can fly, which I'm pretty convinced they can't, they didn't go that way. So we're going to go around now and check the opposite side of the block and the opposite direction that we were told the lions were going. Now, they might have spotted something, and that obviously can change their direction in an instant if there's something tasty around. And I'm still surprised. If they were coming this way, they should have definitely popped up for a drink at the Arathusa waterhole, which they haven't, which makes me tend to believe they've changed direction completely. So we're going to do the same. Still looking under all the little thickets, just in case. Okay. Now we better get tracks around here. Southwest, or maybe we check down towards Seif's Pan. Have a look there, but first let's have a little squiz. What's at the Arathusa waterhole? Also just, oh, there's an elephant. Okay, here we go. It's like a young Ellie bull. Let's go have a closer look. Now, there's an Ellie. Million Clown would like to know about the elephant's graveyard. I'll chat about it in a second. Let's just look at this in front of us. So there we go, a young Ellie bull right up against the Arathusa Lodge. And if you have a look, if you were sitting on the deck, you would have such a wonderful view. And I'm sure he was probably there while everyone was having their afternoon tea before heading out on game drive. It's incredible how quickly this water is drying. Now, as the water recedes, different plant species will grow, and you can see that elephant's taking advantage of the plants that are growing as the water recedes. And well hidden to his right, almost looks like a pile of mud, is actually a hippo. And we keep coming out. There we go, a little bit more. There he is. You see his back protruding. A bit more to the right. There he is, a little bit more. There he is. There we can see his little ears. Now, even though it looks like water there, you can see it's pretty much mud that he's lying in at the moment. So very, very little true water left as we head deeper and deeper into the drought. Now, if those lions are in the area, this is the closest water. So our Arathusa Dam cam peeps, keep a close lookout. We're going to go see if we can find them on the other side of that block. Now, we're talking about the elephant graveyard. It is not true. It is very much an old wives' tale. Well, not an old wives' tale. It's actually an old man's tale. So the myth of the elephant graveyard pretty much started with, what's his name? Rider Haggard is the author. And one of actually my favorite books growing up, which was The Adventures of, it's a Journey to King Solomon's Mines, or King Solomon Mines, the first of the Alan Quatermain books. And a very, very wonderful story, but the elephant graveyard is a story. Elephants happen to die where they die. It is normally close to water though. Especially if they're ill or as they get older, they'll try to find a spot where they don't have to move too much to get water and food. So they do quite often die around water holes or rivers, but no such thing, I'm afraid, as an elephant graveyard. In theory, the lions have to be between these two roads unless we find tracks of them crossing out. So we're going to go very slowly along here. We all know that lions are great sleepers. They sleep for about an average about 20 hours of the day. And Cecilia is wondering which thickets are favored by sleeping lions. And in true lion fashion, Cecilia, the thicket that is most favored by a sleeping lion is the closest one. So the closest bit of shade, it can literally be the most pathetic looking little bush, and they will of that bush during the day. Just keeping a careful lookout. I don't want to miss any tracks. So I've driven through this block this morning. I've now walked as a properly good section of this block this afternoon. So they must be further to the west. The lions got the better of us this morning. I'm not going to let it happen again this afternoon. So while we continue to search through this block, let's go see what Jamie's up to.
While Brent searches for those lions, I'm just double checking around our suspected den site where we thought that the lioness had a den or we've been thinking that the lioness has a den for the last few days. I have to say, yesterday, when we were with the three Nkahuma females, I had to rethink a little bit our theory about the den site. Brent is convinced that he saw suckle marks on the lioness on the sunrise safari. Yesterday, I didn't feel 100% confident that I could see suckle marks on any of the lionesses that we saw. And we know it's not amber eyes. I was looking at the lioness with the twin spots on her nose, and she was the one that I suspected had the den. And I couldn't see any suckle marks, maybe because she'd been away from the cubs for a while, maybe she'd licked her belly a few times, or the others had licked her belly a few times. Perhaps that had disguised it. But her tracks haven't come back in this direction. Now, we spoke earlier about the fact that the Nkuhumas have a buffalo kill in a waterbuck in Simbambili. It does make me wonder whether or not she does have cubs. We'll have to see. Tonight, I think, will be the clincher. If she doesn't come back here tonight, then perhaps our theory about the cubs is mistaken, and she has yet to have them. A nice peaceful scene. We've moved a bit closer so that I can hear all of your questions and comments as well. And at some point we will have to go back in order to do a quick technical change before returning once again. We've got some impala. They're often overlooked just because we see them all the time. But they really are beautiful, elegant little antelope. When I was a kid, I always wanted, before I sort of understood the notion of wild versus domestic, I always wanted a herd of impala in my garden to act as lawn mowers and gardeners. I always thought that would be a wonderful thing to have. And there was a house a couple of doors away from me that had pet blue duikers, which I also thought was a brilliant idea when I was a kid. Obviously now I know different. They're a little bit nervous. This wind is starting to pick up, so they're making sure that they're out in the open and checking around constantly for any potential threats. I'm slowly making my way north because there are lots of elephant tracks heading in this direction. This is where that young bull headed. Mutual grooming and some solo grooming happening. Keeping each other sparkling clean. I always think that impala are one of the best, or they look like the best groomed antelope. And that is partly true. They do spend a great deal of time grooming themselves. They've also got specialized teeth for grooming. The lower set of incisors is set, they're very loosely in their sockets. What that means is it forms almost a comb-like structure and allows them to sort of sift through their fur and pick up any ticks or other parasites or bits of dust that might have collected there. One has to wonder, though, at the evolutionary design that favored the idea of a well-groomed antelope. Something that happened that made the genetic program for loose incisors a thing that benefited impala as a species. And of course they've kept their design for many, many years, tens of thousands of years. They're one of the oldest species out here. It's incredible to think of. And while you look at these females that have just come through the rut, dodging and ducking and diving the males, they've just finished raising lambs to independence, and promptly, straight away, just like that, almost every single one of these females is now pregnant and will slowly be gestating the next generation of impala. Isn't that incredible? Essentially, from the moment that their lambs become weaned and able to survive without their care, comes time for them to mate and fall pregnant again. I have, in my own mind, a list of top 5 antelope. I'm afraid the impala, I don't think, make the cut. But a gemsbok does, a gemsbok or an oryx. And Bertie, you were wondering, is it true that we have gemsbok here still? The answer is no, it isn't. We don't have them in the Kruger National Park or in the greater Kruger National Area. They're much more of a desert-based species. If you go a little bit further to the west, towards the more arid areas, into the northwest province and then further west towards the northern Cape, those are the places where you will start to see gemsbok. I was fortunate enough to work in the Green Kalahari many years ago, and we would see gemsbok basically all the time, and they've definitely made my list of top 5 antelope. Much, much bigger than the impala, a tall, almost horse-like antelope in structure, with long, straight, spear-like horns for both males and females. So in contrast to the impala, where only the males have horns, the female and the male gemsbok have horns, and they are surprisingly vicious in terms of their, well, not so vicious is the wrong word perhaps, but they can be surprisingly defensive, and it makes sense when you think that they often live in areas without any kind of cover at all. So they need those horns to act as a defense for keeping predators away from themselves and away from their young. And I was witness to a phenomenal fight between 2 males, which is actually quite rare. Not like the impala, where at this time of year the males fight almost constantly. And the gemsbok fights between males are rare. It seems as though the solitary dominant bulls that one sees all on their own are usually the ones that take the pick of the females. But it is something phenomenal to witness. Where I used to work, they were capturing a group of, or several different species of antelope to move to another reserve that was starting up elsewhere. And some of that involved corralling the antelope and putting them into large trucks, once sedated, and moving them off the property into a new reserve where the populations were being re-established. And I'll never forget the day that a herd of gemsbok was brought in, and one poor hapless springbuck, which is the size of the impala that you're looking at now, one poor little springbok found itself caught up in this chaos and inside the truck. And the men who were capturing these antelope went in there with these enormous metal shields while the gemsbok were charging and bashing them. And what they do is they go down on their front part of their legs, and then when they get a charge, they lift themselves up and they throw themselves in a sort of downward motion with their horns facing straight out. It's terrifying to witness. And these men managed to get their way into the crate with these huge metal shields, not hurting the animals, just keeping them from hurting them, and managed to lift this poor little terrified springbuck out and set it free, and off it bounced into the distance. A very lucky escape of that gemsbok. Okay, let us continue on, go and see what's happening around Gallagher Pan, whether there's any tracks of lionesses there. And Caleb, you were wondering, while we leave our impala herd, how much an impala weighs, since they do look so light to pick up. And they do look incredibly light. They look delicate, I think, is the best description. You're looking at one impala weighing a bit more than perhaps you might expect them to. So between 100 to 120 pounds, maybe even 130 or 140 pounds for a very big male. They're small antelope. They're small enough to be classified as rams and ewes, but still a significant weight when you think about what our incredible leopards do. So I know that Steph this morning was doing a sort of a reconstruction of the process that Karula would have gone through to hoist an impala into a tree. Just imagine picking up at least 100 pounds, let's say that. Let's say if she removed the stomach contents and had eaten a little bit, she's left with a carcass of 100 pounds. Now imagine putting that in your mouth, so in your jaw, nothing else can help you, you can't use your hands, and then using your fingernails to climb up a tree, dragging that into a tree itself. And you get an idea of just how incredibly powerful leopards are. Pound for pound, I know this is maybe a risky proclamation, but I would say that percentage-wise, in terms of their weight, leopards are actually stronger than lions. But it's just because lions are much bigger that they take the more dominant role. But I think that if you were to shrink let's say to to stretch a leopard to the size of a lion, they would be much, much stronger. Phenomenally powerful creatures. Much more brittle. That's true. If I stretched one, it would be very brittle. So yes, that's the rough size of an impala. Nyala's a bit bigger, a bit stockier, which was why that moment when one of them jumped through the Liam's personal car window and onto Brent's lap, it was a first of all, it's the most bizarre situation I think I've ever heard of, and I've heard of some strange things happening. But also why it actually wasn't, at the end of the day, it wasn't all that funny, because it could have gone terribly wrong. Thank goodness it didn't. But an 80-kilogram female antelope landing on your lap with sharp flailing hooves, and it certainly did considerable damage to poor Liam's car. And then managed to get away unscathed. And hello to Wild Earth Girly, who has a fantastic username. You were wondering on the subject of the different antelope, whether or not we get Sabi antelope where we are. The answer is, in theory, yes. They could occur here. They are in the Kruger National Park. In fact, Brent and myself saw a couple of Sabi in the Shingwedzi area the last time we went to the Kruger, which was now a while ago, 3 months ago at this point. But we did see some Sabi. Now, they prefer a more open area, so we're less likely to see them here. However, it's not impossible. And particularly with the drought, I think that it's going to change depending on how long this drought carries on. I think that it's going to start to shift the dynamics of the antelope distribution. So we've spoken about that possibility with the sable moving in or being seen in this area on the dam camera for the first time in 17, 18 years of this reserve's history. We know that they're around in coral regularly, but they never have moved that far west. But I think Sabi are also a possibility in terms of what kind of impact the drought could have on us. Now at Sabi, we actually see their cousins pretty much every single day, and that is a wildebeest. So a wildebeest falls into the hartebeest family, as does this Sabi. And they're all of those animals, the red hartebeest, the blue wildebeest, the Sabi, they've all got those sloping backs, which very clearly tell you that that animal is built for stamina and for speed. And the Sabi, all quiet, very quiet here. Nothing at the Galago Pan. Yes, Sabi is the fastest of all of the antelope that you could see here. I would love to see one on these live drives. And while we look at the empty water holes and the fact that everything is drying up, Marcel, you were wondering about anthrax and whether I could tell you a little bit about how anthrax is formed. So Marcel, you are right in that it is connected to very dry conditions. It is not necessarily connected to drying of water holes though. So anthrax is a bacteria, but it's a very, very clever bacteria. It's a very efficient, almost predatory bacteria that is capable of forming very hard capsules, making itself into what is essentially a spore that can remain dormant for up to 200 years at times. It's usually less than that, but it can remain dormant up to 200 years. And is usually in the soil itself or on the plants. Now it's when the animals start to scuff and to move about in the dry season, they start to dig at the absolute closest possible growth shoots close to the ground, don't forget, that anthrax really does start to form, and it's in the dry seasons that we see it more often. A drought is perfectly favorable for anthrax to come out of its state of dormancy and to spread. And it's usually eaten by grazers or browsers as the drought continues and immediately infects their bodies. And there's a couple of different places that it can take hold, either in the lungs, it's most frequently in the pulmonary system, occasionally in the digestive system. Just go through there slowly, got to watch the antenna. It will also occasionally go to the brain, or you can even get an anthrax infection on the skin. And that animal tends to die relatively quickly. It's got a high mortality rate if left untreated. I think it's around 80% of infected animals will die. And almost immediately, once that carcass is on the ground, things like vultures will come and settle on the carcass. They'll feed on it, predators will feed on it. And where the connection to water is, Marcel, is vultures in particular. They feed on the carcass, they collect the spores, and the first thing a vulture will do after it's had a meal is to go and search for water, first of all for a drink, and then second of all to have a jolly good wash and a clean of its feathers. And while they do that, they wash and they spread those spores into the water holes, and they spread from there. The fascinating thing about this is that within a couple of hours after an animal has died from an anthrax infection, the typical decomposing bacteria have actually outcompeted active anthrax bacteria completely. So the active anthrax bacteria has a very limited lifespan once it has killed its host. And it's only because it forms spores as quickly as it does and immediately goes into that dormancy state that it can be passed on and is actually such an effective bacteria. It's a clever thing, anthrax. It is a naturally occurring disease out here, but it will be one of the reasons why, as it starts to get drier, you'll find a certain reluctance from all of us as guides to actually interfere in any way or to fiddle with any carcasses that we can't see why they have died. Here's a big Ellie bull. I think he might be our friend from earlier. There's the DRC. You can see my car. Apparently we can see my car as well, so there's my little car. Just the back of it. It's a bit dirty, a bit dusty at the moment. While we go and see if we can't relocate our elephant friend, we'll also return to camp ever so briefly. Let's go back to Brent, find out how this search is going.
Slightly more positive than the last time. I had tracks of one lioness running at full speed, and they should come out here if they didn't stop in the block. Now, we're the only people looking for the Tsalala lions this afternoon, which makes it a little bit difficult, because of course I can't spend my whole afternoon walking around. So it should be around here, no, maybe even a little bit further. But the problem with a lion running at full speed is it might have crossed the road and then it'll just leap across while they're running at full speed. You won't even see a track. So the only reason I saw those tracks is because I was on foot. Of course, you're much closer. You're walking rather than driving. And I saw him while I was on foot as well. So if we go to where's that tree? That big tree there? I think it's that one. No, sorry. In the scap here. Zoom through it. There he is. I saw him while I was walking as well. You can... Oh no, where's he gone now? Of course he moved his head. There we go. Okay, so there we go. You can see his head there. Now while I was walking through the bush, I saw that Ellie bull. Even such a massive creature can disappear in this thick bush. And I had to go quite carefully and slowly. There's very, very gusty wind, so it's very easy to accidentally bump into an animal that's a bit too close for comfort. But fortunately, I heard him feeding before I saw him. Let's leave him be. We're looking for lions. So we've got to check really, really extra carefully, because if those lions were chasing something. And the other thing is, normally you might find them by growling at each other around a kill. With this wind, you're nearly deaf inside here. And this is a really thick area. So their tracks were heading in the opposite direction completely from where they were last seen going. So they must have chased something. Whether they were successful or not is still difficult to tell. Till we find them, of course, hopefully. And I've got to get down low because I'm looking under low bushes here. And what I'm looking for is that white belly of a lion when they're sleeping. Maybe just that round shape of their ears if they're sitting up. Okay, so there's a little creek bed that runs through the center here. And that's where I last had tracks on the one side. And normally on the edges of creek beds, you've got lovely little seep lines, quite open, that we can drive down. I'm going to try that. Particularly thick area. I was walking through here, but I wasn't able to cover all the distance I would like on foot. Low it is. So I'm really trying to look underneath the bush. So as I said, what I'm looking for is sort of that white underbelly of a lioness. Now it sounds like I might get a little bit of a helping hand. I just want to listen, see if we can hear any growling. It could be in one of these deep little ravines here. It always pays to listen. Well, Tristan. Morning. Evening actually, sorry. I had tracks of a single lioness in the middle of the block between first and second windmill. She was chasing something in a northerly direction. I'm still in the area following up. So no growling. thing whatsoever. It's really quiet. And this windy weather is making it quite quiet. I'm just going to take my earpiece off for a minute, and I'm going to say, take your hands and you put them behind your ears like this, like a kudu, and it enhances your hearing tenfold. Not a peep. Not a peep. All I can hear is the buzzing of the flies and the wind in the leaves. I'm hoping they're going to get thirsty. So till then, I think we're going to go see what else we can find and then come back a little later, and hopefully they might move towards the Arathusa Dam camp. So please look out for me. Shanae. Confirm that I'm on top of my tracks. This afternoon.
Dear, oh dear. It seems as though Brent has disappeared and you may or may not have caught me with chocolate in my mouth. Let me just swallow that quickly. And then I'll take you to go and see this enormous herd of elephants that's just walked out. Still, sorry, you took us by surprise. We were still in the process of sorting some things out. It's okay. I'll just swallow that very quickly. Luckily for us, the elephants have provided us with a very useful distraction. Let's go and say hello to them. Yeah, guys. It's important to always have a snack handy while you're out on game drive. Ooh. Maggie the Mahindra is quite a creaky beast. I think we're in for a spectacular sighting once these elephants move out of here. I think they're going to make their way onto quarantine. James Richard, while we are with our elephants, we were wondering, since elephants do seem to be incredibly resilient, is there any kind of disease that could have the potential to wipe out an entire herd? Anthrax, even anthrax, which we were talking about earlier, can kill elephants, but is unlikely to affect every single individual in a herd. And James, I honestly can't think of anything else that might actually do something similar, or something that could affect each and every single elephant in a herd. It's a very interesting question, and it's one that I don't know the answer to. I can't think of anything personally. I mean, obviously the thing that would be the most likely to wipe out an elephant herd would be drought and a lack of food, starvation, but we're very far away from that possibility at the moment. And this is going to be absolutely stunning, because everywhere I look there are just more and more elephants on their way. Oh, it's this herd with the female and the big slit in her ear. Here we go. We know this is one of the biggest herds that we see. There's a couple of really enormous female elephants and quite a few youngsters in this particular group. So we really are in for a treat. I know that for you guys the ambient sound is not too clear on Maggie the Mahindra. There were plenty of rumblings going on there. Communication from all of the members of the herd. I wonder if we position so that we've actually got a good view. I think we can find a really nice spot. Elephants are okay, they're going to start coming out for us anyway. I was about to reposition, but they're going to start moving out and into the middle of the clearing. George in Missouri, while we watch these elephants move through, you were wondering whether I've ever seen or heard of an elephant stepping on its own trunk. And the answer is no. The babies have slightly shorter trunks for their body size than the adults do, so an out of proportion trunk size, because they do run the risk of doing something like that and actually run the risk of injuring their trunks in that way. They're just not nearly as coordinated with their trunks as the adult elephants are. Hello, big girl. She wants that tree, and she's going to push the male out of the way in order to get it. But George, I've never seen an adult elephant do that. Oh, the little one. You're going to come up onto the termite mound. It is possible physically for an elephant to step and trip over its own trunk, but the likelihood of it is exceptionally low. They have a blind spot underneath their head, but they also have some of the best spatial awareness of any animal in the bush. Possibly almost equivalent to our ability to perceive the space around us. He's so cute. Head in the air and tail up and dashing about. It's such a special moment to be able to share with all of these elephants, and there are going to be lots and lots of them moving about. I'm just sort of trying to keep my head on a constant rotation to make sure that we don't have another situation like we did at the start of the sunset safari, where I looked in my side mirror and all of a sudden there was an elephant standing right behind the vehicle. Oh, isn't this beautiful? What an absolutely stunning setting. The nice thing is that these elephants don't seem to be in any kind of a rush. And we can enjoy them out in the open area of quarantine clearings. It's not something that you will be able to hear on your end, but the air around us is just filled with the sound of munching elephants. There must be at least 50 here. Oh, there's more coming, Liam. There's a whole rest of the herd coming across the road. This is going to be such a treat. We're incredibly fortunate. And then as always, there's going to be a big bull elephant moving about at the back. And this is where our young male was on his way to before we left and before we went across to the other camp to just get a new battery and sort ourselves out. I think he was on his way to come and join up with this herd. He must have heard them coming. So this poor bush willow in front of us is going to be annihilated by the time that they are through. A fantastic snack. Definitely a very peaceful way to come into the second half of our sunset safari. Hear the wind howling about as the cold front starts to blow in. And I think what I do want to do, trying to work out exactly where these elephants are going, because there's just so many elephants all around us. There's a lot of little ones at the back there, a lot of youngsters. And we're just going to try and pick the best possible place to observe them. Oh, there's our young male. He's just entered into the scene. He's come to say hello to everybody. Oh, we met with a... Oh. And that, by the way, was a cow, not a bull, that attacked that young male like that. That was a female elephant. That is a female elephant on the right. Oh, and she's just showed him exactly who's boss. Sorry, guys, it's okay, it's not me. Oh. He picked the wrong herd to come in. He was not met with a friendly reception there. How awesome was that? That was a female showing a young male who's boss, and then the rest of them continued that. And we got some really fascinating behavior there. Urination straight away from one of the females, one of the pregnant females. She's now making sure that he has got the message. Just keep walking, Buster. Off you go. Mom, wait, what's going on? I want to join. That'll teach you to mess with my mom. My mom's the boss. And I'm going to pretend to be big and strong just like her. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, now she's pushed him into another herd of elephants that's actually on our left that I had no idea was there. Isn't that absolutely phenomenal? She made it so clear that he was not welcome there. I think he came in a bit too full of attitude. He was still young, and he was smaller than her, and she decided to put him straight in his place. You could see immediately that she'd started secreting from her temporal glands. So those always play. And now? What was that all about? Somebody's having a tantrum in front of me. That sounded to me like a calf. That sounded like a calf that had either been pushed away or that was trying to suckle and Mom had refused. So a weaning tantrum. And here come the rest of them coming to investigate. Sounding just like dinosaurs. One thing that young male has done is he's actually pushed them further into the dense vegetation. They've halted their movement out into quarantine. At the back we've got a whole load of greetings happening. Whether they be, I'm not 100% sure if all of these elephants are part of the same herd or if they're just two herds or three herds associating with each other. And both of those options are entirely possible. And there we go, slowly moving back out towards quarantine. Come on, guys, don't let that young male bully you. Although I don't think he was doing any of the bullying. And that's why you don't mess with a female elephant. Because when you do, it's not just her that you're going to have to deal with, it's the rest of the herd as well. has that young male found out to his discomfort. Oh, back to the bush willow. Seems as though the elephants are really enjoying that this afternoon. And since things have calmed down, the elephant herd, we're going to give them some time to move out into quarantine, and while we do, back to Brent to see how his search for lions is going.
So I may or may not have been distracted in my search for lions. So they've gone into an area where you could see we don't have the best signal. So we decided to make the call, especially when I heard Shadow and her cub tracks are on top of my tracks from earlier today. So I'm now zooming into the area to give Shanae and Tristan a hand, and hopefully we'll be able to find them. So we think she's got a kill because tracks have come down on top of my tracks, and then they've come back, fetched the cub, and then come back up here, and then gone into one of these little river systems. So what we're going to do is we're going to head down to where the last track is. I know Shanae's tracker is already off on foot tracking. Oh, there we go. There we go. We meet some trackers. Hey, how's it, guys? Oh, and I just heard a Franklin alarm calling behind me, so I'm going to go have a quick look. So unfortunately, we're right on the boundary of our traverse. So if she carries on in here, that's not good for us, I'm afraid. And it looks like she has. She might have crossed a bit. So it could be anywhere around here. She has been known to utilize this area as a storing point for her cubs. There's this little dry river creek we're sitting in now. So I'm just listening to the Game Drive channel. Okay. We're just going to carry on here. The trackers are gone and she's crossed into Zibambili. Oh dear. She might cross back. Let's stay positive. And she was we literally came down here and she's walked on top of our tracks. So I'm just going to go back to Triple M. She might sneak across to our side, fingers crossed. We've already discussed what trees lions like to lie under. Celia's wondering what trees do leopards like to laze about in. And again, Celia, it all depends on the situation. So if they're being chased by a lion, of course the closest tree is always the best tree, but generally they like quite big trees, marulas, jackalberries, also big brown ivory trees. And there's a big brown ivory tree that I've seen Shadow sleeping in before, just up here. So I'm going to go have a look. Shall I have a quick chat on the radio? Just, don't worry, I'm going to leave the area. I'm going to head back to the north. Okay, so this is, I've seen her in this big brown ivory tree before. So, and always worth checking around. There's a big termite mound. Triple M junction with Sabi there's a cut line. So I'm just listening carefully. I think she's so close. We must have missed her by a matter of minutes. We're still being optimistic. We're going to keep checking down Triple M. Maybe she's just taking the scenic route to visit Juma. I think I might be pushing the optimism a bit far this afternoon. But you never know. That's the most amazing thing about being out here. I could just spot her through the bush. Spending a lot of time looking low today. Come on, Scardovier. Now Scardovier is sometimes what we call shadow. It is basically is shadow in Afrikaans. I agree wholeheartedly with Lynn, who says it would be so nice to see Shadow and her cub on drive. I agree, hence my focus into the bush to the west of us. I'm also checking the trees just in case she's got a kill. There's a nice scotia, which is another tree that leopards like, or weeping boerbean is another name for it. So while we continue to scour and believe that Shadow is going to come visit us, let's go see what Jamie's up to with those ellies.
Luckily for us, we haven't had to believe that the elephants are going to come towards quarantine, because they are very kindly doing that for us. We've got a whole bunch of young males that have congregated on the sort of the eastern side of this herd. And they're all meeting up and pushing each other backwards and forwards. Oh, this is awesome. They're just elephants 180 degrees all across us. Lots of little ones, and then one big bull that is watching us from the trees at the back, keeping a close eye on what we may be up to. Looking very, what's the word? Majestic. Standing out head and shoulders above the rest. Absolutely stunning. Now, Shannon, you were wondering about baby elephants, since we have a few of them wandering about here, and whether or not an elephant will give birth, cute little one, during the day or at night. We've got a perfect little example of an elephant calf that is just over a year old. Shannon, as we look at the different groups of them, the answer is they can give birth at any time of the day. There's a preference for the daytime hours rather than the nighttime, as there is with most of the animals out here. The reason being that, of course, a new calf is particularly vulnerable in its first few hours of life, learning to stand and to wobble about. This one, of course, has clearly made it past that stage and is at the point where learning to use one's trunk is one of the most pressing issues. And even though a female is protected by the rest of the herd when she does go into labor and when she does give birth, there's plenty of opportunity for her to be at risk if she were to give birth at night when lions and leopards are most active, and hyenas. Here we go. Poke in the bottom. Hello, you two. Keeping yourselves thoroughly entertained. Now we have our big bull who's come to investigate and see what we're doing. And he wants to come and say hello to us. In fact, he wants to come and intimidate us. And he's about to think about doing it now. See that sort of sideways head movement, the slight stillness to him. Hello, boy. Not going to do anything. Here you go. Luckily for us, these big bulls, when they're with the rest of the herd, tend to be particularly distracted. But it gives us a beautiful perspective as to the size difference of a fully grown male when compared to the females that are head and shoulders below him. He just towers over the females. Now, no female in their right mind would be able to tackle a male like that in the way that we saw earlier. Oh, we've got a ganging up situation here, and females come to tell them to stop bullying. Isn't that awesome? You can really see that behavior playing out perfectly there. She's come, whether it's a male that is connected to her in some way, maybe a little brother or a cousin, and now we've got a female coming right in front of the vehicle. Hello, little girl. You're gorgeous. Yes, you are. What's here that's so nice? This is so incredible. There are just elephants absolutely everywhere. The female that's just walked past behind is the one with the slit, huge cut in her ear. And I really just don't even know where to look. There's so much going on. There's little calves playing at the back behind them, heading towards Twin Dams Road. A little congregation of friends and cousins, and maybe even buddies from a different herd, from a herd that they are not all related to. Robert, you were wondering, when elephant herds meet, is it always a friendly greeting? And the answer is yes, almost always. Sometimes they get in each other's space and there's a bit of squealing. Sometimes the youngsters get upset at something that has happened and the females have a bit of a disagreement. But other than that, the greetings with the elephants tend to be incredibly friendly. An elephant herd is not territorial. They have a home range, and what you'll find is that in a lot of areas, the excuse me, the elephants in a herd or elephants in different herds might be distantly related, but they will all know each other to some degree. They'll be even if they're not related, they will be on friendly terms with the elephants that they get to see, and you'll often find several different herds grouping together at different times of the year, which I suspect is what we have here. I don't think that every single elephant here is part of the same herd. We've got a few tiny babies involved in the systematic destruction of this bush willow that is slowly getting smaller and smaller since we started out our afternoon. Here comes a young female. There we go. Another young cow showing just how comfortable these elephants are with the presence of vehicles, moving right up close and trying to make the most of the meagre offerings of the soil. Very little for them to feed on at the moment. But Rob, you were wondering, is there a survival advantage to an elephant as a herbivore? Since there seems to be a lot of plant material about for them to eat rather than for them to be a predator of some description. And the answer is Yes, absolutely. There is a there is a reason that an animal this big is a herbivore. Can you just imagine how many antelope would be required to be killed per day to meet the dietary requirements of one several-ton elephant? There's absolutely no way in the world that they would be able to sustain this size on meat. So as with any sort of feeding pyramid, the herbivores make the most of the vegetation and the energy that the plants have to offer. And there's a great deal of loss of energy before it gets to the predator part of the different life cycle. And how cute are these two? We've decided that the crush in the bush willow itself is too much, so one of the little ones has managed to grab a branch and move it away and is feeding there. But the other little one wants to join in as well. Double trouble. Nope, it's my branch. I want it. And because I'm still a baby, my trunk doesn't work terribly well, so I need some time, need a bit of extra time to feed. Fine. Little one's gone back to mom. Ready to climb into the bush willow now to find some food. Such a wonderful moment, just surrounded by elephants. You've got a mouthful there. One or two very pregnant females. In fact, I think that this female that we're looking at with her bottom to us, given the width of her abdomen, I would suggest that she is pregnant. Look how wide she is there. And right high up, elephants carry their pregnancies up towards their spines and their hips. Only sort of right at the end will that pregnancy drop down, will the calf drop down towards the lower abdomen. Oh dear, here he comes. Are you going to come and say hello to us, boy? Or are you going to be nice and calm? Don't go bully the little baby with its branch. Here's a size comparison for you. Beautiful old boy. And while we're sitting here, Veal and myself are actually being covered in dust. And the elephants that's billowing about us. Oh, look at this. Beautiful. Isn't that incredible? There was a perfect example of a greeting ceremony. See the way that they both stuck their trunks into each other's mouths for scent purposes, and then the male tested the temporal gland of the female that he went to greet. It was a very, very respectful greeting that we had here from a large bull to one of the older females of this group. And he's big. I mean, I would say he's at least 30 years of age. Big, mature bull. Relatively large tusks. But Casey was saying that she's been looking at books of animals or books of elephants and has noticed that in the pictures in these older books that the tusks seem to be much longer than the elephants that we see on safari. And was wondering if perhaps elephants are evolving to have smaller tusks. There is a great deal of research that suggests that tuskless elephant and smaller tusked elephants are being selected for due to human-based pressure. Now, the elephants in this area are fortunate in that they won't have faced that kind of pressure for a very long time unless they've strayed up towards the Mozambican border, which is very far away from here. But yes, Casey, to an extent, tuskless and smaller tusked elephants are being selected for. And then bear in mind, of course, that a lot of the time the photographs that are chosen for those sorts of books are the photographs of elephants that are exceptions rather than the general rule. You still get elephants with enormous tusks out here, but they are few and far between, and it's a genetic. It's dictated by genetic circumstance more than anything else. Just like some people have inherited slightly stronger teeth. And the same applies to certain elephants. This little elephant, I mean, apart from the fact that we're now thoroughly surrounded, this elephant just sneezed. It inhaled so much dust. Look how comfortable it feels with that male right next to it. Let me duck down, because there's some action happening on the other side, where it looks like the young bulls have gathered, and there is a bit of trumpeting and a bit of chasing happening there. Angry head toss. I just don't know where to look. There's just so much going on. I don't actually think there's a better way to spend a Friday afternoon than surrounded by a relaxed herd of elephant. I mean, look how close this little female is. So sweet. Young female just about to approach puberty. Look at these two little mischiefs. The wonderful thing about this sighting is we've been provided with all kinds of vocalizations. And Ellen, in Arkansas, you were wondering whether elephants recognize individual voices or if they just respond to the sounds that other elephants make. And my suspicion, Ellen, is that yes, elephants, I certainly know that they can recognize individual people's sounds or people voices. And yes, I think that they do recognize each other's voices. I know, boy, we've been sitting here the whole time. And she's far too young for you. It is stunning. So, Ellen, the answer is I don't think it's been 100% proven that elephants recognize each other's voices. I can guarantee that a calf will recognize the trumpet of a mother, or that a mother will recognize the screeching of her own offspring. And I have no doubt that that applies even further in different circumstances. I'm absolutely, in my own mind, certain that different elephants recognize different individual voices. Oh, be careful. That little calf's going to squeal and you're going to be in trouble. That was unnecessary. Push the calf right off the road. Typical squabblings of youngsters in a family group. And of course the babies, especially suckling babies, don't need to eat as constantly as the adults do. So there's more time for shenanigans. Time to explore the world, discover what is worth putting in your mouth and what works better as a toy. In this case, dried leaves and a piece of bark. Not all that entertaining. Look at it. You can see how clearly this baby is just exploring its world. It's like a curious toddler. The way that toddlers always grab things, pick them up and put them in their mouths to investigate. So you're gonna spin sticks now. It's exactly what this little elephant's doing. And learning all the time. Constant process. Oh, I've got an itchy ankle now. There we go. Cute. practicing that coordination. And girl, now that you're kicking dust up, you are kicking it up all over Bill and myself, just so you know. Every time she kicks the dirt in front of her to uproot some grass, we get these clouds of dust billowing across us. It's amazing. And while we're watching the little baby, Gracie, who is 8 years old, and I know that she absolutely loves elephants, you were wondering what happens when the boys' elephants or the older elephants are mean to the baby. Well, Gracie, the wonderful thing is that the mom and the baby's aunts and the baby's older sisters, they will all come rushing in to defend the little one. And they will make sure that the other elephants can't be mean to it at all. So a baby elephant is not on its own, it's not without protection. And the females, if they need to, even though they're smaller than the males, if they need to, they can all group together in one group and chase away any males that are causing trouble or being naughty. Like these elephants at the back. Young bulls siphoning off some energy, clashing together. Now I would at some point like to reposition, however, at the moment I can't because there are elephants right up behind the vehicle and I don't want to scare them, so we'll have to watch this Ellie fight from afar. The dust clouds billowing. Well, they're going to move on. They're going to be backwards and forwards, I think. There's actually quite a serious scuffle happening at the back. A real display of strength. They are pushing backwards and forwards. You can just see where that... Check my side mirror. Okay, the female's moved out of the way a little bit, so we'll be able to reposition. While we do, let's head across to Brent for an update.
Well, no luck with Shadow. Unfortunately, she has gone to Simbambili. Doesn't seem like they'll find her, but I'm pretty sure they're going to find her on a kill tomorrow, which is great for the little one. It's got some food. And speaking of little ones, I decided after Arethusa was such a bust. It wasn't really. We had some nice early balls, but in terms of the big cats, the only other cat that I know that we might have a chance at finding is that Nkahuma lioness, who has a den somewhere in this area. So we're going to have a quick squiz around here on the eastern edge of Djuma Private Game Reserve. And if you've fallen behind with all the lion and leopard news, or you're new and want to find out more about the lions and leopards we see on the live game drives, just use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and send me a question. Okay. Now I'm trying to think where to next. There's a lovely view here. Let's take a moment to decide where to go next while we gaze across this glorious landscape. And there's actually a tree in that dead bird. A bird in that dead tree is what the words I was looking for. So if we see, let's have a look. You can just see the silhouette. Now, there we go. Now let's see how good our birders are. Who can identify that bird from its silhouette? If you know what bird that is, please use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and let me know. Let's see how good your birding is. If you can identify a bird by a silhouette. That's quite a pretty picture. I think I might take a photograph. I hope you guys are also getting some wonderful screenshots of that. Oh, no, you naughty bird. Murphy's Law. All I got was a disappearing bird. There we go. Now that might, here we go. Disappearing. Almost looks upside down. There you go. Murphy's Law, one of those things that happens. Just having a quick look. There's some old lion tracks here, not fresh at all. I did see some ground hornbills take off from around Guari Pan, which is where we are, and fly down towards the Moati. And if they like to roost in big trees, I'm hoping for a really magnificent ground hornbill silhouette shot. I'm going to try and follow up. I saw them fly from here through, about 3 of them. Yep, hello, water bucks. There you go, a lovely pair of female waterbuck. Well, I'm definitely going to have to make the birds a bit more difficult. Well done to Robin and James Richard. Spot on the money. It was a lilac-breasted roller silhouetted in the African sunset. I love how shaggy waterbuck are. I think if I had to give them a nickname, I'd just call them all Shaggy. I can see, I was talking about biting flies a little bit earlier on the safari. You can see how they're shaking their heads quite a bit, and look, if you look on their nose, on that one's between its eyes, you can see those evil little stable flies biting away. Well, they're going to head now up towards the high ground, away from the little river systems. It's a little bit warmer up there at night, so that's where they tend to sleep, and also a little bit more open, giving them a little bit more protection from predators. Now, speaking of predators and waterbuck, I found out what the Nkahuma ladies are eating with 2 Birmingham boys, and it is a waterbuck that they caught. Oh, look what we have here around the corner. And we've got some elephants. Who's that little one? Oh, I already know this boy. He's got very distinct tusks, this young bull there. Hello, little man. And I think we're about to be stalked. There's a little bull to the right. Young bull. I'm just going to move forward a little bit. Oh, pushing a tree. Don't push that on me, please. No, we're far enough away. Don't worry about us. I was just playing. It doesn't look like she wants to push it down anymore. Oh, here we go. No, just half push it over. Oh, yes, madam, you're very scary. We're not going to move. It's okay. So it's very important in these situations with elephants. She's being a little bit testy. You can see from her ears being extended like that. But if we were to move the car now, we might actually incite her to chase us. I'm going to sit nice and calm, and you notice I keep talking. and a very even voice, and that does help to relax them. But if I do need to, I know I can tap the vehicle and raise my voice, which will generally work in keeping her away. And at the moment, I think it's just a bit more playfulness than anything else, just reminding us that they're massive creatures and we shouldn't disrespect for them. And that's one of the most important things in the bush, is the moment you lose your respect, I mean, you get a bit of complacency around these animals, is the moment an accident can happen. Hey, big girl. We're watching you. There we go. Yes, you're very big and very scary with a big shaking head. There we go. She's just reminding us that she's a big animal and we shouldn't push our luck. But you notice just with that head shake, even now she's confident that we're not a threat anymore. You can see her tail has got relaxed. Her ears are flattened against her body, and she's going to carry on feeding and pay us not too much notice. She might shake her head at us a few more times. I think she's probably going to be more interested in getting some food now. Look at that, isn't that just stunning? So while our Ellies are going to move off into the thickets, we're going to lose sight of them shortly. I think I heard a rumor that Jamie had some elephants as well.
I do indeed have elephants, although it is getting a little bit too dark for us to see them. We're just going to enjoy the last few moments in peace, watching them rest and relax and munch away on grass. This is the bachelor herd. Slightly separate to the rest of the group. There are some youngsters at the back. So I think the rest of the breeding herd moving about in that area. And one very large bull that is keeping an eye on things and making sure that the shenanigans of the younger bulls don't get too out of hand. They've relaxed now, not too much fighting going on. I think that tonight I'm going to be going to bed. In fact, we're all going to be going to bed, accompanied by the sounds of elephants softly feeding outside the window. It's a wonderful sound because you get the rustling of the bushes. Oh, bit of unhappiness there. I don't know what that was about. But you get the sound of the rustling of the bushes and the trees and twigs scraping against the elephant's skins. And also the flapping of their ears against the sides of their bodies. Definitely the best way to spend a Friday evening. Not too cold. Elephants are peaceful. I'm just listening to the sounds of impala off in the distance, but I think it's rutting sound still, right at the end of their rutting period. So nothing for us to go rushing off to look at. And our beard, we've spent so much time with this particular herd, you were wondering if the guides get to recognize individual elephant herds or if they move through an area too often for that to happen. The answer is yes, absolutely. We recognize individual elephant herds. And we also learn to recognize individual elephant bulls. So, for example, when we started out this sighting, there's just elephants everywhere. There's one trumpeting way off in the distance. When we started off this elephant sighting, there's one female with a very clear, huge triangle cut out of her ear, and that's how I always recognize this herd. And I know that it is a particularly large herd since I've seen this enormous group of elephants together before. We've got the backwards facing tusked elephant, Fang's herd. We've got the short trunked elephant, the snared trunk female and her little herd. So yes, we do get to recognize the individual groups because they do, whilst they can cover enormous areas, elephants do move about in a home range. They quite often return to regular spots that they know and that they enjoy and feel comfortable in. The bulls are a slightly different story. We get to know individuals for a period of time. We might see them for a couple of weeks, if we're lucky a couple of months, before they move off and they disappear completely and we get a whole brand new batch of elephants in. And sometimes they come and go and we never ever see them again, like that elephant with the broken tusks that Liam and myself had come right up to the vehicle. He was in a particularly upset mood and he covered us in dirt and in saliva and trunk secretions all over the camera, all over Liam, all over myself. I've never seen him again. I think Shanae did see him once, so Shanae from Coral, she had an encounter with him, and then after that he just disappeared. Occasionally they do come and then just disappear completely, as they are going to do now, unfortunately, as darkness descends. I think this will be our last few moments spent with the elephants. Excuse me, they've kicked up so much dust, it's all gone into my lungs, and I'm now hacking away and coughing and sneezing. One lone bull off on the western fringes of quarantine clearing. Now this was the perfect sighting. The elephants were totally relaxed, nothing terribly serious. They weren't concerned about our presence in any way. But Miss Lynn, you were wondering if I ever get nervous, or if we ever get nervous when we're sitting in the middle of an elephant herd. And the answer is, Miss Lynn, yes, sometimes. I wouldn't describe it necessarily as nervous, but sometimes I'm aware of the situation and the fact that we don't necessarily have an escape route. What have we seen there, Vian? Oh, the impala. Where did you come from? All spotted. Didn't even see him. Oh, yes. Oh, hello. Oh, you chasing impalas? And now? That was very entertaining. Thank you for all of that dust. I really, really appreciated that. It was very well spotted on Liam's part. Obviously, the impala was chased and the little elephant decided it was going to come and try and chase us as well, but not even brave enough to stop at that point. He just came sprinting straight past the front of the vehicle and on to the comfort of the rest of the herd. Highly entertaining. Can guarantee that was a male. That was definitely a male calf. There's no female calf in the world that would have done that. There's just that incredible difference in their personalities and their characters and their behavior, even at such an early age. So Miss Lynn, yes, sometimes I don't know if nervous is the right word, but I'm sometimes wary of the position that I might be in. There are times when you're surrounded by elephants and there's absolutely nothing you can do except sit still and go, gauge the weight, just trust in your own ability to know what you're doing and to read the elephant's behavior correctly. And there's really nowhere else that you can go. And that's not really nerves, it's a very intense feeling. It's an intense awareness that you're in a tenuous, I don't even know if tenuous is the right word, because you feel instinctively that it's under control. But it does make you aware that it's not really in your hands. It is to an extent, because we're trained and we know how to read elephants and we know what we'd do if something went wrong. But it's entirely up to the elephants to decide how to deal with you. And then I've had a few encounters with males where I've been not nervous, but again, I've been aware of them in the fact that they're trying to threaten or intimidate us. That's very easily handled. the most serious warnings come from the females themselves. Bulls very often, unless it's a particularly irascible bull, something really wrong with him, bulls very often are just showing you that they're big and scary. But a female, when she warns you that you are doing something wrong, when she tells you to go away, it's a warning to be heeded absolutely 100% and to be acted upon immediately. Because it's the same with lioness charges versus lion charges. The lioness warns you and charges you. I've had the most charges in my life have come from female lions as opposed to the males. The males tend to be quite relaxed. The females far less so. Okay, well, our little elephant calf, having sort of decided that he has now scared us away, he has moved off. Before we do go off, Chris Rogue, you were wondering about how an elephant gets its protein, since they are herbivores. Well, the answer is, first of all, to an extent, there are proteins within the plants themselves, as within all natural biological cells. The root systems of plants also play a very important part, so the legumes and the seeds and so on that they eat, those have the proteins of the nitrogen-fixing bacteria, the rhizomes on the plant's roots, that form a very important part of their diet. And then, weirdly enough, Chris, the bacteria, and it applies to ruminants especially, but it does apply to elephants as well, the bacteria in their gut that help with the breaking down of the plant material and that produce the incredible amount of gaseous expulsion that occurs within an elephant herd. The bacteria that are busy breaking down all that plant material, they have a very limited lifespan. They reproduce quickly, but they die off very quickly as well. And that actually forms one of the main sources of protein for animals like elephants. Just one of those fascinating things about the bacteria of their gut. This little mischief is not... I know it's too dark for us to see what he's doing. I don't know what he's chasing, but he's chasing something. I know you could just see the shape of him running. I'm trying to work out what he's running at. Sorry. Standing up, staring into the distance. I think he might be actually be trying to find the rest of his herd. He's got distracted by an impala and then come to chase us, and now he actually doesn't know where everybody is. Oh no! He's so distressed. He's sweeping his head backwards and forwards, trumpeting. Oh, shame, baby. They went that way. Shame. I know it's really difficult for you to see, so I'm going to reposition. But unfortunately, again, I think it's just too dark. And obviously, I don't want to scare him further, although that little one, with all of his attitude... Is he chasing us? You little mischief! You naughty little boy. Oh yes, stub your toe on the trees. Oh, you are so naughty. Trying to drive away, and he came sprinting up behind us. You little monkey. Oh, you are so naughty. Your herd's that way. Go find them. Little brat. I'm so sorry it's so dark, because this would be the most precious sighting to be able to share with you. You've been completely full of nonsense. Really. Now, I bet you, if we drive away now, he's going to try to chase us. Will you drive backwards? Oh no, now he's going to go for Eugene. He's going to go get Eugene. Yes, you can go distract yourself with the rest of the herd. Oh, he gave us such a talking to. I think it might be time for us to leave our elephant herd, unfortunately. It is so dark now. And it, I think, spells the end of our sighting. Well, we've been thoroughly put in our place by a young little elephant bull who decided that as he would take the opportunity while we drove away, he was going to chase us so that he could convince himself that he was the reason why we were driving away, that he was chasing us away. Silly little thing. So while we extricate ourselves from this naughty little mischief, who's still busy destroying and kicking a termite mound, he's having such a tantrum, I'm going to send you back across to Brent for an update.
So, sunset, and we're now in search of any little nocturnal critters that might be about. Bush babies. I'm hoping for a civet, really hoping for that maybe we'll get lucky and see one of the small cats. That would be amazing. Okay. Now I'm going to check along the edge of the Mawati River here, where there's some open. That's quite strange. What happened there? Something kicked up some sand. I just saw a bit of dust pop out of the bush. Didn't see what it was from though. Maybe we can find a scorpion tonight. Oh, let's keep looking. So 75% of your more interesting smaller mammals only come out at night. They are quite difficult to find and they don't occur in massive numbers. So it's always a bonus when we find one of them. You can see Juma taking the opportunity to do some road repairs while the drought is on before the next big rains. Hello, Nicholas in Jacksonville. Nicholas would like to know, can we tell the difference between a hostile and a non-hostile animal by reaction and attitude? Most definitely. We're looking for lots of small little signs. So how we generally read those reactions is we're watching the body language. Even with elephants, there are some little tiny nuances that you don't often get. A slight stiffening in the legs, the tail, just a generally sometimes, what was that? It looked like it had quite wide eyes. It ducked down quickly. Oh, I think it might be a waterbuck. Whoops. So Nicholas, yes, most definitely. All the different animals have their tells, and even lion and leopard, you can tell the ears flattened, flicking tail, and obviously it's a bit easier with your cats because of the hiss and the growl that you can get from them. But all different animals will show you whether they're relaxed or not via their body language. Now, one of those interesting nocturnal mammals that has eluded me so far is a porcupine. And Aaron in New Zealand said a porcupine would be good. I agree. I'd love to see a porcupig. Now, of course, they are the largest rodent we get in Africa, the porcupine. We find their quills often on the road. We see their tracks, but we don't often see them. And as we head deeper into this dry season, I think we're going to definitely get a chance to see some of those smaller, more interesting nocturnal animals. There we have a nightjar in the road. Oh, had a nightjar in the road. And is off. More than likely, just from where we are, a fiery-necked nightjar. But I didn't have a good enough look, so that is not 100% confirmed. Good Lord, deliver us, is what the fiery-necked nightjar is supposed to say. One of the quintessential sounds of the African bushveld. Now, if you watch lots of movies, I found it incredibly funny. Hollywood seems to have endless supplies of audio tracks on their books, so to speak. And for some reason, whenever there's a steamy night in the southern United States, they put on a steamy Africa backtrack, and the fiery-necked nightjar is generally the star. Always find that quite funny. There's a little... Oh, it's gonna go. One of our lucky Safari Live viewers is actually coming to Djuma in August. And that is Thelma in Michigan. And Thelma would like to know, what kind of birds should I look out for in August? Well, it's probably going to be about the same sort of birds we see now, as not quite, just quite before the migrants arrive. The migrants normally arrive November, maybe October. Late October, but early November normally. So the birding will be pretty much similar to what we're seeing at the moment, but it's always good to look out for martial eagles and all the vulture species and the cisticulars that are sometimes very difficult to put on camera, and all the little birds. But I'm sure you'll see a plethora of feathered friends, Thelma. Now, one of the reasons I'm heading towards Treehouse Waterhole is that little natural seep that's been dug there. So there's a chance some of those smaller nocturnal creatures might be using it. So I'm just listening to the game drive quickly. There's a leopard calling, unfortunately, quite far from where we are. So I have a trail camera or a camera trap, and Debbie in Vancouver is wondering if I'd ever use it. I do, but I'm busy getting it hyena-proofed. Debbie, hyenas have this incredible love of chewing everything. So if I've got to get a steel casing made to fit it, and then I will definitely put it out to see what we can find. Okay, we're coming up that little those little seeps. Nothing around them yet. I have found porcupine tracks going into these little spots that the elephants have dug to drink around the Treehouse Waterhole. Even the bush babies seem to be evading us, but it could be this windy weather we're experiencing. They might not want to come out. Of course, wind also affects their hearing, which makes it more difficult for them to be careful of predators. And I'm really hoping we can find an owl or two. I'm checking some of the favorite owl hangouts at the moment. Now we're speaking about owls, which are a bird of prey, and Rick's wondering how many different species of owls occur in the reserve. Oh, not owls, birds of prey. Oh, Rick, let's try now. Let's do the vultures first. White-backed, white-headed, hooded, lappet-faced, regular, fish eagle, another there, martial eagle. Now you must remember, some of them only come for the summer months and then they go, but we'll include them anyway. But tawny eagles resident, African hawk eagles resident. Let's check down the road. Okay, well now we're going. So we've done the eagles. Okay, warburgs, lesser spotted. Oh, hello, Vildy. Sorry, turn the lights off. Lesser spotted eagle. I've forgotten where I was now. Brown snake eagle, black-breasted snake eagle. So we've got 10 already. That was quick and easy. And we haven't even gone on to the smaller birds of prey. Trying to think, I'm making sure I'm not missing any eagles. Okay, let's move on to the smaller birds of prey quickly. We're on 10, so Gabar goshawk, dark chanting goshawk, little sparrow hawk. I know there's some I'm forgetting now. But so probably close on 20, maybe a few more, Rick. Possible birds of prey. There's always the odd vagrant that makes an appearance, like a honey buzzard, a European honey buzzard. African harrier hawk, there's another one we do know for sure. I see some eyes down in the distance there. They look a little bit interesting from that distance. What? Oh, it's is it? It's a hyena. Hello, Howard. I feel like I haven't seen them in an age. Here we go. So my nickname for all hyenas is Howard. Howard Hyena. Howard the Hyena. So out on the nightly patrol. See how it lifts its nose up to the air every now and then, catching a whiff, see if there's any carrion around. We're quite sure the den has moved off Juma at the moment. They could have moved back on, but I know they were checking the den sites earlier today. Oops, sorry, my hat was in the way. But this one's just come out of the old den site at Philemon's Dip, but it's dark, so I'm not going to go check the hyena den after dark, but I might definitely go have a look there in the morning. How it is disappeared into the shkova. Now, who knows what a shkova is? There's a Shangaan word for the day. Shkova is a dry riverbed or a drainage line, or a donga is another very South Africanism for it, but in Shangaan it is a shkova. And a shkovanin is a little one. See if we can catch one last glimpse of this hyena might pop through on the other side of the skava. Okay, so just in case we do have any new viewers out there, we don't shine the light on any of the daytime animals, only the nocturnal animals, because it does slightly blind them and it does make it a little bit easier for the predators, and we of course are here to observe, not to interfere. And unfortunately I don't think I'm going to be able to see that hyena move deeper into these thickets here. Try one more time through one of these gaps. Nope. Well, at least we saw one animal with spots. Oh, it was one of those days where it was a little bit frustrating. The cats evaded us, but nice to see a hyena. I feel like I haven't seen a hyena in ages. Right at the end there. And I think a really good first day for Gerard on the back, so thanks. And thanks for joining us. And, well, we'll see you in a few short hours for the sunrise safari. Exciting times. Hopefully we'll have a bit more luck with the big cats then. Let's go back to Jamie for the last few moments of the show.
For the last few moments of our sunset safari, I'm going to be playing Dodge the Elephant, or at least attempting to. There are just ellies absolutely everywhere around quarantine and the surrounding places. Getting home after dinner might be an interesting experience all of its own, but I'm so glad that we got to spend an entire afternoon with a very special herd of elephants. Just to keep you updated, our little elephant bull, our very cheeky, very naughty little elephant bull, decided that he wanted to try and chase us when we left again. Sorry, what is in there? Liam, I'm going to need you for this one. Can you see where I was looking?
Yes.
You've got him, just got to be a bush baby. Eyes look so yellow though. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is. Is it a bush baby? A little one. What a nice way to end off our sunset safari. Bush baby peering at us through the leaves. Except that he's gone now, somewhere, I think. Can you still see him, Liam?
I think he's looking the other way.
Looking the other way. Oh. Awesome. Coming out, just searching for what's left of the insect life and also the various plant species. And as he dashes out and goes about his morning or his evening business, we will be joining you tomorrow morning for the sunset safari in just a few hours. However, I do want to say a very big thank you to the behind-the-scenes team that work at Wild Earth. There's been a great deal of some exceptionally hard work. Not all of it gets seen, but a huge amount of dedication from our tech team and from our cameramen goes into bringing you these live safaris each and every single day. And we owe them an enormous thank you. So thank you to VM for his fantastic camera work and his contribution to all that happens behind the scenes, as well as to our lovely ladies in final control, to Kirst and to Jerry and to Rebecca and to Lou, as well as most importantly to all of you across the globe who have joined us for this live safari. Have a fantastic day, and we will catch up with you tomorrow on the Sunrise Safari. Bye-bye, everybody.